All right, so once again, fortune has shined down upon us, this time in the form of this rusty railroad spike that I found stepping around out there in the yard. So, if you're familiar at all with this channel, you might suspect what's coming next. We're going to put it on a stick. Something kind of like that, I think. And it's a pretty cool idea because this side gives us basically, when you have this on like a walking stick, this gives you basically a hammer over here, which could be useful. But what I'm most excited about is this spiky side, because basically that gives me a little digging implement. It gives me a small pickaxe. You've seen on this channel, I forage a lot of stuff as well, but I typically only forage the above ground stuff. But there's a lot of stuff below ground to forage as well, and I never get those because I never have a digging implement with me. I could use like my pocket knife, but then that dulls the blade, gets grit all in the hinge and everything, and it's just not good for your knife. And carrying around a proper pickaxe is impractical and terrifies people on the trail. So, slightly less scary, maybe, would be this miniature pickaxe made out of a rusty railroad spike. Gonna take that rust off first. I believe that the best way to do that would be to loosen it a little bit and then wire brush it. So we're gonna loosen it with a vinegar soak for about, well, overnight, whatever. I'm gonna put it in this tub, like so, and fill that up with vinegar. And we're just gonna leave it. There we go. And while that's going, we can work on the stick. So let's get started on the stick. Put these blocks of wood in there to keep it from, I want to keep the bark on as much as possible. So let's go ahead and clamp it in a way that hopefully won't tear up the bark too bad. I think I want to do it pretty much exactly the way it is right there. Maybe scoot over just a little bit. And just sort of mark it on both sides. So there we go. That's the path of the notch. And then we need to mark the depth as well. So I'm going to stick to the inside and make sure that we make our gap narrower than as opposed to wider. I can always take off more material to make it fit later, but I can't put more material back. So I'm just going to take a saw. I'm going to use a hacksaw since I'm going on end grain right here, and the only other hand saws that I have are crosscut saws. So I'm using a metal saw, but it will work. And I'm just going to make some cuts and take them down to close to the depth that I want. So the camera fell, but during the time that I was setting it back up, I had a much better idea. I'm going to try to just put a drill through this thing to take out a bunch of material sort of in the path. So let's do that. Alright, so I'm going to start out with a small bit, and then I'll use that as a pilot hole for a larger bit. This wood smells delightful. The bit spinning in there that fast is heating it up, and the aromatics are coming out of it. This is a hickory. I think it's just a pig nut hickory or mocker nut hickory or something like that. It was in the way of the workshop, cut it down about a year ago, so this stick is fairly well aged and dried, but still just that the oils and the aromatic compounds in that wood are coming out. It smells delightful. Yeah, step this up one more time to a 3/8 inch. And we're down into the hole. Probably now chip away a little bit. Just sort of caving that in all the way across. Where's a flat tip screwdriver when I need one? It's in my tool bag, which is somewhere else right now, but I can just use this punch to knock this material out of there. Okay. So, probably do a little bit more work with this chisel. All right, now that we've got the notch started in our stick, I'm going to do what I should have done to begin with and at least give this spike sort of a preliminary cleaning. Go ahead and put these guys in there, because why not? And wearing the old safety glasses for this, because I'm going to use this wire brush on my drill gun, and these little wires have a tendency to, once it gets some wear and tear on it, fly out, and you don't want that to fly out into your eyes. My safety glasses are not very new. They're quite scratched up, and that's kind of a problem, but they're not quite bad enough to worry about yet. Eventually you can't see through them and your safety glasses become danger glasses. Honestly, if I spend a little bit of time with this thing, I think the vinegar bath may be a little superfluous. Yeah, so I'm going to flip it over, try to get access to this little part right here, because I couldn't get to that from the angle that I was just at, but you see a little shiny, little smoothness on here. That's where we're getting down to solid metal. No longer this iron oxide, we're actually seeing iron. Yeah, let's keep going. Really wish I had a bench grinder with a wire wheel on it. That would make this a lot easier. But I don't yet. Okay, you guys see we can do a before and after on the ends now. So here's before, there's after. It's coming along, it's cleaning up pretty nicely. But yeah, that's actually pretty good. I just rub this thing down with oil soon. And to be clear, when I say pretty good, for what I want. I'm not trying to make this thing shiny, polished, super sleek, completely smooth. I want it to look rusty. I want to walk around with a big old rusty railroad spike on the end of a stick. I'm stopping there. That's pretty cool looking. Let's compare it to the notch in the stick. That's not far off, honestly. That's pretty close. Just need to shave that down a little bit more. Which day did we want it to go? That way? See the taper. If I put it all the way over like that, it sits in, it sits flush. But I don't want it to be like that. I want it to sit somewhere like that. Actually, that, well, I'll be damned. Look at that. That's what I was going for, pretty much. Look at that. Sits right in there. Pretty nice. So, need to mark a couple spots here where I want them to go. And I just want to hold the heads up here so I can see roughly how big we're talking. Need to widen those holes out so that the threads can pass through, because these are just going to they're not going to thread into the metal. They're going to go through the metal and then thread into the wood on the other side. So we need to drill holes wide enough. These are just pilot holes. We need to drill holes wide enough for these threads to fit through. So let me find a bit. And actually, before we get too far, I want to take this, I want to take the spike out now, because when I pop through on the other side of this, I don't want to take that wider hole down into the wood, because I want that wood to be there so that the threads can bite into it appropriately. So let's just vice it up like this. Okay. These almost certainly fit through there, and they do. And so we need to just do a little bit of countersinking right there. That is almost perfectly flush there. That's kind of a thing of beauty. All right, we'll go with that. Just to give the shaft of the screw something to a place to go, so it doesn't have to push all that wood out of the way and hopefully not split it. I think that we are almost at the point of attachment. Yeah. Okay. The fun thing is I can actually lift this up all the way and then start the screws. Kind of like that. Seat this thing. And then we just got to drive those in. Oh no, the worst possible thing. I broke it. Broke the brass. Ah, okay. Let's see if I can get this other one back out. Okay, that one's intact, came out fine. Shit. Well, that is deeply, deeply disappointing. How do I recover from that? All right, so let's just talk about what just happened. So basically, brass is just a very soft metal. Now, I chose a soft metal. I chose brass for this. because sometimes in impact situations, which this has got a hammer on one side and a pickaxe type thing on the other side, you kind of want a little bit of a soft metal because it won't shatter as easily as, say, like a hardened steel fastener of some sort. But brass is too soft, and going into this very hard hickory wood here, into the end grain of it, just couldn't handle that stress. So now we have this bit of brass stuck in the metal, exactly where I would put a replacement screw. And I did just go look at some cool plants to calm down and go on a drive back to the hardware store to pick up some stainless steel screws that are the exact same size. Number 10 2-inch screws, but we got this one in the way. So what I'm gonna attempt the impossible, and I'm gonna file this flat, and then I'm gonna try to drill straight down the shaft of this as close as I can. It's not gonna work. It's almost impossible for me to do. I don't have a jig to make this thing line up perfectly the exact same way that it did when at the angle that I did the brass screw. I can pop this back on there so that the head here, this spike, can function as a sort of alignment jig, but it's going to wander off. But I'm going to try to just remove as much of that brass material as possible. So that's what I'm going to do next. So this stainless is much harder than that brass, so I'm hoping that if I get the shaft thickness drilled out, which this is a 1/8 bit, I'm hoping I can sort of follow that hole that I just did, remove even more of the brass material. If there's just little bits of brass in there, I think that's fine. I want to try to get rid of as much of that brass in there as possible without removing so much material that the screw has nothing to bite on into. That sentence didn't make any sense grammatically, but you know what I mean. What a mess. What a mess. Well, hopefully this stainless can work around that brass. Let's see. Hopefully these can handle it. Before we put it on there fully, I am going to rub down this inside surface a little bit with some oil, since it will hopefully never see the light of day again. Alright, so now this screw is going to want to wander off to the side of the intended hole because it'll be bumping up against a big old chunk of brass in there. Nobody wanted it this way, but this is the way it is now. Whew. Well, that's ugly. And I bumped out of the top of that Phillips head there, and my chuck seems to not be able to hold on to screws anymore, and it seems to have flared out this wood here. But all in all, that's on there. It's just not quite the aesthetics that I was looking for, but aesthetics ain't everything. So let's finish rubbing this down with oil. Hit some snags along the road, but that's coming out pretty good. One thing that we have not done yet is chamfer and temper this bottom of it. Let's go ahead and do that. Well, that could have gone a lot better, but the height of it is pretty nice. It's on there quite securely because we basically have a brass insert in there holding one of the screws in place. Yeah, quite a nice stick. A little on the heavy side, but that's fine. That's fine. And I do think I could dig with this quite easily. Got, what is that? 3.5, 4 inches sticking out this side of a spike. Got a hammer on that end. Yeah, man. This is one of the best ones I've made.